So I get out of basic training, and you get assigned to what your specialty is. And I thought, I asked for computers, and I was going to be working on mainframes. And I look, and it says electronic warfare. And I went, what on earth is that? And I'm assigned to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is, back then, and I assume maybe now, the Air Force had the world's best vocational training program in the world. It was spectacular. In hindsight, even, it was still spectacular. I think it was about 9 months of vocational training, half theory, and then half hands-on practice on some real equipment. And I learned really the basics of electronics. Again, I could have been a great TV repairman by the time I got done. But also got to run my first large-scale marketing experiment ever. Because I was still a little bemused about being in the military. I didn't quite understand why people were yelling at you one day, but now we're in school. And so the Air Force Base for Keesler was kind of this mix between command and control, but also you're in educational things where you can ask any questions, but you got to follow orders, which was a little bizarre. And you should understand there were 10,000 people on this training base at a time in 30 what were called squadrons, 30 buildings of 300 each. And every Friday, the squadron would kind of meet in the courtyard to get final instructions for the weekend. And then, like a school, we were dismissed. Go have a great weekend. But there was always some little lieutenant who maybe just got his bars, 21 or 22 years old, that would stand up and give us our, briefing for the weekend. And the other thing is, every squadron had a bulletin board of like things you were supposed to read. You had to read this bulletin board and mostly it took 5 pages to say no smoking in bed or, like something very military. But there was always these official orders. And the other thing to think about is that they would rotate people who had to be think of it as it was called a fire warden, but think of that as a manual smoke alarm. Before they had smoke alarms, they had people walking around every room at night to make sure no 19-year-old was smoking in bed, catching the building on fire, seriously. And so that would rotate between random people. And one night, I was the fire warden. But when they made you fire warden, they gave you access to that lieutenant's office, which had a typewriter and the base letterhead with the letterhead of the base. Now, you remember my story about loving libraries? Well, this Air Force Base, Keesler, had the world's best technical library. And so I would spend spare time there and discovered Scientific American. And Scientific American had a great article about a prank that was pulled on Caltech about 5 or 10 years earlier. And I'll tell you what it was in a second. But I wondered, would that prank work on a military base? And so I took that prank, typed it up into Militaryese, made 30 copies of it, and got the keys to our bulletin board and snuck out, abandoned my post, which was like, unbelievably bad, and put this fake order from the base commander in 30 different buildings. And this was a Wednesday. And I thought people would read it and laugh and ha, 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 but no one said anything. No one said anything on Wednesday. No one said anything on Thursday. Friday comes by. We're about to have our 300-person meeting and other 30 buildings that's going on as well. The lieutenant comes out and said, blah, 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 blah. Any questions? And again, no one ever had any questions because we all want to go, party for the weekend. One guy raises his hand and says, sir, about the memo from the base commander about turning off gravity to work under the buildings. Does that mean what about our fish? Will they float to the... I had typed up a letter that said, from the civil engineering group, gravity will be turned off this weekend. And so here are the tie-down instructions. Please no footprints on the ceiling and whatever. And all of a sudden, 10 other people start raising their hand, asking questions about well, what if we're driving? What will happen to our car when we get into these gravity discon... And I'm going, are these people stupid? What the... And then it dawns on me as the lieutenant is going, are they screwing with my head? That this is going on at 30 other barracks. And so the lieutenant turns to the sergeant and goes, and they run out and they get the letter and they go, it's signed by the base commander. I had signed his name. and they go, what could this be? And so he runs back in to call the base commander. At the same time, 30 other people are trying to call the base commander. An hour later, we're standing out there. He comes back that says, the order about the gravity being turned off, that's not really an order. Dismissed. Now, the punchline is, for years, I'd be in different Air Force bases around the country. And every once in a while, someone would say, did you ever hear about when they turned off gravity at Keesler? And I was smart enough to say, no, tell me about it. And it always sounded much better when other people told the story. So that was my first large-scale marketing activity.